Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Richard Nixon Presidential Library and Birthplace. I'm Sandy Quinn. I'm president of the Richard Nixon Foundation. I thank the Lord for blessing us with great sunshine today, and that's a great way to celebrate Richard Nixon's 99th birthday and the beginning of the Pat Nixon centennial year. First, I'm going to ask you to stand, which you already are. Those of you who aren't, please stand. And I want you to welcome the Seal Beach Sea Cadets. They're the side boys. Now, usually we have a lot more, but school's in session, and these selfish kids insisted on staying in class rather than come here. So, side boys, take your position. And girls. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the presentation of the colors by the H&S Company, 2nd Battalion, 23rd Marines of Pasadena. The Pledge of Allegiance will be given by the President of our Docent Guild, Tony Gianetto.
Please salute or place your hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Tony. Very well done. For the singing of the national anthem, it's my pleasure to introduce from last year, returning Alexandra Castel, who is a graduate of Orange High School, and she's 22 years old and sings at events all over Orange County, and we're delighted to have her back for the national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet
I wish I could do that, but I can't. Ladies and gentlemen, to give the invocation, I'm pleased to present Navy Chaplain Robert Grissat.
Let us pray. Dear Commander-in-Chief of the Universe, on this day and at this hour, we gather as well we should to honor the 99th birthday of our beloved nation's 37th President, Richard M. Nixon. Coming from the humblest of beginnings, this man found greatness the hard way, the right way, and the quintessentially American way. He earned it. His election to student body president at nearby Whittier College was but a harbinger of things to come. As our president, only this proven patriot and global visionary could be trusted to extend the hand of friendship to the People's Republic of China, and in so doing forever change the course of history. Inheriting America's long war in Vietnam, a war not of his making, with a steely principled determination he would settle for nothing less than a just and honorable peace. Domestically, his bold initiatives created opportunities for the least of these, your children, the poor, the downtrodden, and the disenfranchised. And in a vocation where many take such vows lightly, he was a devoted husband to the singular love of his life, Pat, and father to their beloved daughters, Tricia and Julie, whose own lives have brought honor to their parents' legacy. Finally, in the words of the great poet Rudyard Kipling, President Nixon could meet with both triumph and disaster and treat those two imposters just the same. For sharing this incredibly gifted and giving leader, a leader whose stature rises with each passing year, we offer our heartfelt thanks to you, O God, the author and finisher of every good gift. Amen.
For those of you who have seats, please be seated. I want to introduce some special guests, and I'll begin with the President's younger brother, who you'll hear from in a minute or two, Ed Nixon. The military aide to President Nixon, a decorated Vietnam combat soldier, Colonel Jack Brennan. I think I started this too quick. The former chairman of the, I'm going to pause for a minute in respect here. Thank you, guys. I didn't retire the military. They'll probably retire me for that. Our treasurer, board member John Barr. Our former chairman of the Richard Nixon Foundation Board of Directors, Don Bendetti. And board member Maureen Nunn. Board member emeritus Hubert Perry. The godmother of Whittier, Ruth Shannon. Two of Richard Nixon's first staff members, part of his family, really, Loie Gaunt and Mar Jacker. Are they here yet? Yeah. Mar Jacker and Loie Gaunt started in the 52 senatorial campaign. Marge traveled with him throughout his presidency. Loie was here with us for years and years. Thank you both. Thank you both for coming. The chairman emeritus of the Republican Party of Orange County and a good friend of Richard Nixon's throughout his career, Lois Lundberg. Lois. And Lois sent some flowers that are over there. Thank you, Lois. I want to comment just briefly on the house that you're looking at. Frank Nixon, Richard Nixon's father, Ed Nixon's father, built that in 1912, and all of this were groves, citrus groves. Richard Nixon was born there in 1913. This is, to a great degree, a dual celebration of his 99th birthday and the beginning of Pat Nixon's centennial year. for Pat Nixon's centennial year on March 12th, we'll open a spectacular exhibit in our 4,100 square foot special exhibit gallery called People Were Her Project, and I hope you'll come back for that. It'll be here all summer and fall. Next year is Richard Nixon's centennial. He will have been 100, and we will have the Richard Nixon Centennial exhibit and events for both of them all year long. I hope you're members. If you're not, you might consider that, but please go online to www.nixonfoundation.org and sign up for our weekly updates so you'll know what we're up to all the time. The tradition of wreath laying at presidential libraries has been around for decades and decades. And every year, the incumbent president, this year President Obama, sends a wreath and a note and sends a representative to place that wreath. And today we have Admiral Mike SHATYNSKI, who was here last year, who will lay this wreath, accompanied by Ed Nixon and Colonel Jack Brennan, to lay the wreath sent by the president. Gentlemen. Jack, you go, Ed, Jack, go around this way.
Wave to the crowd.
Okay.
Correcting what the Honorable Chairman said, I was the Marine Corps aide to the President, not a soldier. During the time that I was his Marine aide, there were many occasions when wreath-laying ceremonies were proper in the United States, but most especially overseas, where we pay homage to war dead. One that I remember in particular epitomized President Nixon and his ability as a world leader, and that was in the Soviet Union in 1972. We visited Leningrad, and we visited a cemetery in Leningrad, and the scene there, they have 24 hours of dirge music, and just very, very somber, and rose, and really lost 6 million people in World War II. President Nixon stopped at a particular display and read it and paid attention to it, and I was just, in uniform, being like a good Marine. And I forgot about it. I mean, it was a very poignant moment. I didn't forget about it, but the particular reading. President Nixon had asked the government of the Soviet Union if he could speak directly to the people, if he could go on television and speak with the people of the Soviet Union. Remember, he was the first president. On this occasion, no president had ever visited Moscow. And the people of the Soviet Union were wondering, who is this ogre we read about from this evil empire? We were the evil empire. And they didn't know. And he said, can I speak directly? And they allowed that. And in the great hall of the people, in the great Kremlin Palace, is a very ornate room, St. Catherine's Hall. And from St. Catherine's Hall, he spoke to the people of the Soviet Union and showed the softer side of America and how and why we wanted peace. And he used the wreath laying and the dedicated monument that we read to say to the Soviet people, here's why we should have peace. Yesterday I read a diary and saw a photo of a young girl, 12 years old, young Tanya. And Tanya wrote her diary, and this is much like Anne Frank's that all of you know about. Tanya in her diary said, in January, uncle name died. In February, it was grandma and grandpa. in March, and then at the end of it, it was just, there was no one left, just Tanya. And he's, you know, appealed to the Soviets. For this reason, there should be no more Tanyas. There should be no more stories like this, ever. We must have peace. We must have peace in the world. And so he convinced, in my mind, the people of the Soviet Union, not the leaders yet, but the people, saying, maybe we should talk. And I leave you with that. That's the real President Nixon. Thank you.
I am getting older. I wobble now and then, but my memories are still very bright. Of all these I see here, there wasn't anything here then. In fact, I never saw this place until my brother Don brought me back here to see the birthplace house, which was, as you see it, only it was pretty well in need of some renovation. Well, it's still there exactly where it was planted by my father in 1912. And I often have been asked, what do I think of it? When I came back to see what they had done, I said my father would be very displeased. He said, this was a cheap old house. It was a lot of work, but you've spent way too much money. You should have used that money on somebody that needed it. Well, today that attitude pervades all of us today. We look for money, and what do we do with it? Most of it wasted. Most of it's wasted. And we really need to think clearly, carefully about what we do with our wealth. I'll be going to China in February to commemorate the 40th anniversary of the landing and retracing the steps that they took in those days. At least that's the plan of the moment. And I know that my brother's remarks when he came back from China to me were always aimed at, if you go and when you go, meet the people, not the leaders, meet the people. Well, that's what I have done. I've been there 36 times. This will be 37 and probably my last time. But it's really a great thing to think about what effect Richard Nixon had in the world on leaders by relying on the people that support the leaders to spread the word. And that's what democracy is all about. We have a republic. We're not a democracy. We are a republic, living with people living under the laws. We democratically elect our leaders to make the laws, but then we're expected to live under them. We sometimes make mistakes on whom we send to Washington to make the laws, and sometimes we need to send some more people to change those laws. That's my own opinion. But anyway, I'll leave you with that. Let's have some new blood.
Well, good morning. It's truly an honor and a privilege for me to represent President Barack Obama today in recognizing President Richard Nixon on this 99th anniversary of his birth. First, I'd like to welcome Ed Nixon, attending on behalf of the Nixon family, and I'd also like to thank Chaplain CROSSAN for his wonderful invocation. As you've heard, you may not have heard, but I'm from the city of Whittier. It's my hometown. My house is 1 block from his alma mater, Whittier College. When my wife and I visit uptown Whittier, we walk right in front of his old law office. His beneficial and personal influence is still felt in the city of Whittier to this day. But his contributions were much, much greater than just Whittier. He shaped the country and the world we live in today. Only months before President Nixon died in 1994, he was asked in an interview how he would like to be remembered. And he answered, "I'd like to be remembered as one who made a difference." And without any doubt, Richard Nixon made a difference. A man after my own heart, he began his public service as an officer in the United States Navy during World War II. Decades of service followed, congressman, senator, vice president, and then president of the United States. His achievements were and still are significant. President Nixon inherited a country weighed down with war and domestic instability. He worked tirelessly to establish unity and peace with honor. He ended the draft. He oversaw the withdrawal of American troops from Vietnam. And under his watch in 1969, American astronauts made that first giant step for mankind on the moon. On a global scale, Richard Nixon was a pioneer. He reopened the long-closed door to mainland China with the Goodwill trip in February of 1972. Only a few months later, he visited Moscow and signed agreements on arms limitation and trade expansion. He improved relations with two powerful countries and had a dramatic and positive effect on the international political stage. In his later years, President Nixon became a prolific writer and earned great respect as an elder statesman. Today, we express our gratitude to a man who, without any doubt, truly made a difference to this country and to the world. I also want to take a moment to recognize his wife, Pat Nixon, since this is the 100th anniversary of her birth. President Nixon once said that he would never have made it politically or physically without her as his partner. Pat Nixon not only supported President Nixon from his earliest years, including his service in World War II, but she made a difference in her own right as a First Lady for the people of this country and of the world. She set precedents showing that women can play a vital role for our nation and for the world. I think the spouses of those who serve have the most difficult job. While we who serve deploy and single-mindedly focus on our mission, our spouses stay home, keep a home, raise children, and pursue careers. Pat Nixon deserves special recognition as an ideal role model for spouses of her time and for today. In closing, I must thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for sharing this very special occasion where we remember a president and his First Lady who truly made a difference. Thank you.
Thank you, Admiral. That was excellent and very articulate. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to ask you to stand again. Oh, you already are standing. Those of you behind me to please stand for the playing of taps.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. 'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed. Through many dangers, toils, and snares, I have already come. 'Tis grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Let's thank Alexandria and Navy Band Southwest trumpeter Robert Burson. Thank you. And we'll now have the retiring of the Sea Cadet side boys and girls. Thank you, Sea Cadets. You always look great, and you give us confidence in our future military quality. Thank you for coming.